Why is DevOps engineer not a real title for you, Sean?
Because DevOps encompasses so much that you're not going to have one person, one engineer, be able to do soup to nuts for DevOps. They're not going to be able to do all the project management, the version control, the CI/CD, the platform engineering, the deployments, the cloud infrastructure. You're not going to have one person to do that. So
But then why is it okay to have a software engineer? Because even that currently we have back end, front end, right? There's different focuses within software engineering. But we
yeah, I'm
have
not sure
software
I'm going
engineers
to argue in favor of having a software engineer either. I
either.
would say my argument falls down that way as well. But at what point do we just want to have a generic title to be able to talk to your neighbor when they ask you what do you do?
I'm an engineer.
Yeah, I'm an engineer, and and that's actually didn't think we are going to talk about that part in this, but when I'm in an elevator, you have you have your typical elevator speech. So someone comes into the elevator, you're in there, they try to make small talk. So what do? I have two elevator speeches. I have one that I give to someone who I feel is in the industry and is not talking down to anybody and explains what I do. And then I have one that I tell, people that I don't believe are in the industry. And sometimes that trips me up, because a elderly woman will come in. Oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a software engineer. And then they unload because, well, they just did, 30 years at Boeing or something. And then they completely know, what I need, what I'm
You don't tell people that you make computers go beep, beep, bop, beep, bop, beep, beep.
No, I've never used that as my elevator speech. But
Have
typically,
you ever heard, there's a guy, oh man, James Whitaker. He used to work at Microsoft and at Google.
uh-huh.
And he had this great thing. So the story goes like this. He's in the bathroom. He works at Google. He's in the bathroom up in Seattle. And Larry Page walks in and stands next to the stall next to him, breaks bro code and doesn't space it out or anything, goes straight to the stall next to him. And Larry Page goes, so what do you do? Right? And this guy Whitaker's response is, I've been saving the world from Internet Explorer since 2008. Or whenever Chrome came out. And he was so, like, Larry Page was just so impressed because he's like, he could have said, I built software, right? I'm an engineer or whatever. But he's like, I've been saving the world from Internet Explorer. And I think this is kind of the spirit of what you're trying to get to at the end of this, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You need to be able to, tell your neighbor what you do without having to get into too much
the detail.
so do we really need to have a title, front end engineer, back end engineer? The DBAs already have their own title. But yeah, I would say that this argument holds true for DevOps as well. In fact, DevOps is even a bigger spectrum because it includes your DBAs and your software engineers front and back and sideways and your cloud folks and your SREs and your platform engineer guys and your security.
I mean, when I was a DevOps engineer, I was on paper a software engineer that did DevOps. And so that in itself was confusing, right? And then what happens if you're more on the infrastructure side? So I had a buddy on my team who he didn't write a single piece of code, but he was setting up the servers. Like he was physically, creating fiber cables and crimping.
DevOps engineer, yeah.
So
he was carrying servers in and out of a lab and hard drives and things like that.
And crimping cables and stuff. And so does that not make you a DevOps engineer because you're not?
That's part of DevOps. That can be part of DevOps. There's really no reason why it shouldn't be.
And I had another buddy who specialized in automations. He was our scripter. He knew how to script the heck out of everything. Like he knew Bash and he knew how to turn anything into a script.
Yeah, and that's a great stepping off point to become the larger DevOps engineer, which shouldn't exist. But because that's kind of I got my start in version control, but I quickly moved to process automation which was build automation and basically automating all the things, which became a core concept in DevOps. But that's only one path into DevOps, which is why I'm really not in favor of someone saying that, hey, we're a DevOps,
team.
Yeah, well, that's what I dislike even more, is building a DevOps team. A DevOps engineer, okay, I can live with it because we were talking earlier. A lot of recruiters think they know what DevOps engineer means, and depending on the company they're recruiting for, that might mean automation engineer, might mean the cloud custodian.
Yeah.
But
It opens you up to failing to meet expectations within your company, because if your manager has a specific vision of what a DevOps engineer should do, and your skill set is something completely different,
yeah,
it,
right,
it,
right.
it
Yeah, that definitely, you're 100% right. And it goes to, when you interview for a job, it shouldn't be a one-way interview. You need to be interviewing them too. But that, you got to be careful with that, because if you walk in and say, "Oh, hi, Mr. Hiring Manager, what's your definition of DevOps?" that might not be the best first approach.
yeah. But one still though, this has bitten me in the butt, where I got hired for a specific position in a very specific title, which I believe I firmly did the job very, very well. But my manager had a different expectation of what that role should do. And that expectation of that role was heavily governed by his roles and responsibilities, because him and I happened to share the same title. He was just the manager, or a more senior person, and I was, the individual contributor. But because I didn't do the same activities and perform the same duties that he was performing, I got to fail to meet expectations, even though, based on the job rec, based on what the recruiter had set out, based on what I signed up for, based on my skill set, I thought I did a phenomenal job.
Well, so there's a lot to unpack in that. Clearly, I put a lot of blame on the manager. The manager probably had many times to correct, or direct you, before it was review time. He should have set strong expectations at the beginning, and so that you would understand what is accepted, and then you would have a that would be an opportunity for you to say, well, wait a minute, this is what I signed up for, you may or may not have issues with what he thinks you should be doing. Especially if you signed a contract to do a particular job based off what the how the interview went and what the recruiter told you. But anyway, that should have all been handled at the management level. And so, maybe he was just too junior of a manager.
That's a common problem that I see, especially with smaller companies, right? Where you either outlive, like especially in startups, right?
Mhm.
You outlive the senior people, and somebody's got the job, so you're the only one that didn't get fired or left because you didn't want to keep.
Mhm.
I feel like in startups, like a lot of people leave because they just can't deal with the uncertainty, right? And there's chaos, and so people leave, and they kind of leave a path, and so you're like, well, I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
And you grow, you get into these positions, but you weren't designed. Like it takes a specific kind of skill to manage people.